Welcome back to the Andrew Finney Show, where we help you make sense of real estate. My name is Andrew Finney. I'm here with King Realty Group in Las Vegas, Nevada. Looking forward to a wonderful conversation with you today. And as we begin, let's lay down a couple of quick house rules. The first one is that you're in a safe place, so please be respectful and polite. And the second one is there's no such thing as a stupid question. So if you're thinking it, please feel free to ask away. So as we begin, we're going to go over a few different things in the live stream session. The first thing that we'll do is go over the book of the week. The next thing that we'll go over is a question that really stood out to me that came in over this past 7 days. And the third thing that we'll do is that we will respond to the comments on the channel that have come in over the last week. And of course, any questions that you have here live, we'll go ahead and get those answered for you right now today. All right, so as we begin, let's move into the book of week. The book of the week is a book titled The Power of Moments, Why Certain Experiences Have an Extraordinary Impact by Chip Heath and Dan Heath. So what makes this book so fascinating to me and why I wanted to share it with you is that when we're talking about the power of moments, there's so many things that can happen in a single moment. Sometimes we take it for granted about the snap of a finger and what could happen. Life can change in the snap of a finger. We could meet our significant other. We could meet the person that's really meant to help us out in the snap of a finger, just that fast, just that quick. So when we're talking about the power of moments and we're talking about positivity and having the right energy, there's things that we can do as people that actually help us increase these kind of moments and help us build stronger connections. Consider the fact that sometimes you could walk into a room and maybe you're in that room for 30 to 45 minutes and you've never met anybody in that room, but you can leave that room after 30 to 45 minutes with a brand new best friend just by the power of moments. So why is that exactly? What goes into that? How can we do that more often? And how can we inspire positivity and do away with negativity by things like elevating the experience, getting insight into other people, taking pride in the connections of the fact that we're all stronger and better together than we are not. We're all far more alike than we are not to begin with, right? So why is that? And what can we do to further inspire that and further encourage people? So when we're talking about the power of moments, it's just a book that really sticks out to me. And it's something that I use in practice every day in the real estate practice by understanding how to best connect with people so that we can break down the barriers. I mean, let's face it, when we meet somebody new, normally there's barriers. Normally there's a little bit of resistance, a little bit of anxiety. So the quicker that we can establish a connection, that both of us can become much more comfortable with each other and have a meaningful and productive conversation about what's most important to you. That's where the power of moments come in. And I hope that you enjoy the book as much as I've enjoyed the book. So the next thing that we'll do is we'll move on to the question that really stuck out to me. And it did come in from one of our YouTube subscribers a couple of days ago. And she was asking me a question, and she said she'd watched the top 5 real estate scams don't get tricked episode. And she was saying, Andrew, the real estate agent asked me to give him an earnest money check. I thought it was kind of scammy. I didn't like it. I didn't give him the earnest money check. How should I be making my earnest money deposit? And is that legit? So in short, there's a lot of questions going on there. Number one, sometimes your real estate agent may ask you for the earnest money deposit. At the same time, you do not make it out to them. You make it out to the title company. A real estate agent should not be having any check made payable from you to them. And when it comes to the earnest money deposit or anything else for that matter, a real estate agent can only be paid through the broker. So whenever a real estate agent asks you for a check for your earnest money deposit, that means that obviously you're getting ready to go look at homes and you probably have the intention of writing an offer. So you would like to have your stuff ready to go. Now, it is very common in this time right now in 2019, a lot of people do wire transfers. It's very, very, very common for the earnest money deposit. At the same time, some people don't like to make a wire. So then that brings us to the forms of an earnest money deposit. You can write a personal check for your earnest money deposit. You can get a certified cashier's check for your earnest money deposit, but it's critically important to remember it does not get made out to the real estate agent. It gets made out to a title company who's going to hold that inside of what's called your escrow account so that that money can be applied to the purchase of your new home. The purpose of an earnest money deposit in its simplest form is simply a deposit of good faith. So it's not something to freak out about, but it is something to be real about. And it's something to understand that the majority of people do just a very simple wire transfer for their earnest money deposit. I wanted to lay her concerns to rest, depending on what the situation was that she was saying the agent had asked for an earnest money deposit check, so long as it wasn't made out to him in this case, then that's acceptable. As long as it's made out to the title company, that's all that matters here. So I'm really glad that question came up, and I hope that helps you if you know anyone else that's wondering the same thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over the last 7 days of questions that came in on the channel. And if anyone has any questions while we're streaming here live today, just let me know and we'll go ahead and get right to it. Okay, so I'm just scrolling down. There was a lot of comments that came in over the last week, a lot of wonderful people watching. Okay, so we had Tiffany Grocia had watched first time homebuyer class start here. She says, number one, for sure, we are hoping to get our first home soon, and the down payment and closing costs was one area she did not have much knowledge in at all. Thank you for all the great information. So when she's talking about that, there are two sides of purchasing a home. You have the down payment and you also have the buyer closing costs. It's important to be ready for both sides of that so that you can know how much money it's going to cost you to get into your home. You obviously have the one side being your down payment, and then you have buyer closing costs, which is best to plan for anywhere between 2% and 4% of a sales price. On average, 3% is a pretty good idea to have ready to go, unless you're in an attorney state. If you're in an attorney state, meaning that an attorney is required to be part of the transaction to close, then you may need a little bit more. Now, you want to talk to your trusted real estate advisor and your local loan officer that you're working with to ensure that you have enough funds on hand to cover your down payment and your buyer closing costs. It's a really good point, Tiffany, and I'm glad that you took that away from that episode. I've made other videos about buyer closing costs and down payments. Please watch them as you plan and prepare to buy your home, and definitely send you positive mojo and vibes that everything goes along swimmingly for you. Adim Nuridini, my real estate agent, calls me often. So Adim, that's awesome. Your real estate agent, especially if you're in the closing process, should be calling you often. In fact, it should always be a minimum of once a week. Whenever we're in the closing process and I'm working with families here in Las Vegas, Nevada, I'm normally in touch with them more like almost every day, depending on where we are in the transaction and what's going on. The next thing that happens is when we move into what I call the silent period of the closing process. In other words, after the buyer due diligence has been completed, the home inspection is done, the repair request is out, the appraisal has been ordered, and everything checks out. There's a limbo phase, if you will, or the silent period where I, as a real estate agent and your trusted real estate advisor, is kind of just sitting back as you are, twiddling your thumbs, waiting for the local loan officer and the title company to do what they need to do to help you close on your new home. So even during the limbo period, it's a good idea for the real estate agent to continue to contact you, because let's face it, I mean, closing on a house can be nerve-wracking and it can be anxiety inducing because it's so exciting, and it's just one of those things you're like, can I close? Can I close? Can I close? Kind of like kids when you take them somewhere and they're like, hey, are we there yet? It's the same thing when we buy a home. Everybody wants to know. The biggest thing that can cause a problem is if your agent isn't communicative. So Adim, I am very happy to hear that your real estate agent is calling you often and keeping in good touch with you, hopefully ensuring that all of your questions are answered throughout the process so that you can be comfortable and confident every step of the way. Now, of course, here in Las Vegas, since I make all the YouTube videos, I reuse these videos that I've made for the closing process in a very sequential order that makes sense of the closing process to answer questions in addition to the conversations they may have with me. They'll also have the video to refer back to, and in practice of implementing that process over the past 12 months, the families that I work with have loved it. They said it's been very, very helpful, where we'll have a great conversation, and sometimes, you get on the phone and it might be 9 o'clock at night by the time they're like, oh, I should have asked him this question, but then they have the video to refer back to. And I did have a nice lady that politely reminded me the other day, hey, Andrew, it would be great if you'd make more playlists for all the videos you have. The videos are awesome, but we need to be able to get through them and into the exact bucket, essentially the exact sequence that we're in right now. So I will definitely be taking a closer look at that and make it one of my most important tasks to accomplish this first quarter and breaking them apart. So whenever we're talking about like the closing process, for example, perhaps I'll just make a bucket for like closing process for buyers, closing process for sellers, similar to how I use them in my action plans. They wouldn't be quite as detailed because obviously those are emails, attachments, and stuff that are germane and local here to Las Vegas. But at least ways the videos could be followed in a sequence. Okay, I don't know what happens sometimes whenever we drop like that. My connection is always pretty swift, so I'm a bit surprised anytime we drop connection, but I'm sorry about that. We're back again. I don't know what you last heard, so we'll just kind of go backward with what I was saying with the buckets from what the young lady had asked me to do, and I just want to share that with you. So, as we move forward together with putting things into different playlists, please let me know what your thoughts are and what kind of playlist would be helpful. It'll probably also give me a better idea of what's most significant and what's most important to you as well. To take a look at the different videos that I've created and any more videos that you would like me to make for you to help you make sense of the real estate process, depending on where you are. As a lot of our subscribers know, and the way I look at the subscribers, really, they're like family. You guys are just awesome, and I love you. I really do. And all the wonderful comments that come in are so meaningful to me, and the constructive criticism that I receive from time to time, I love that too, because I'm always working on improving the videos for you. That being said, anything that you guys are thinking about, just let me know. I've made so many videos, almost 500 at this point, and by the end of the year, we'll probably be close to just over 600, closer to 700 by the end of the year. So that's a lot of videos. So that being said, and Ilya, I just saw you tuning in. You said, "Hi, Andrew, great to watch your video and touch in real time." It absolutely is. And Ilya is, for reference, y'all, Ilya is one of those that was giving me some constructive criticism the other day. And Ilya, I know you can't see it on here on the screen, but over here on my left-hand side, I have a big whiteboard. It's like maybe 5 feet by 4 feet. It's a big whiteboard. And I always write out and keep in front of me my most important tasks that I need to accomplish and the projects that I'm working on to make things better. The reason I bring up that whiteboard, Ilya, is I printed out the email that you sent to me with suggestions, and I taped it to my whiteboard so I have it front and center so I can take a closer look at it. And there's a lot of good things that you put in there. There's some things that I believe I've already done, but there's also things that stood out to me that I could do better. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And it's something that I will take into consideration, and I will work on improving as I can. As you know, I'm a full-time trusted real estate advisor. So making the videos is something that I do out of sheer passion. So I need to continue growing my skills in this way too, and still stay focused on helping people real time be able to buy and sell homes and give them my undivided attention and focus to help them make things happen. So it's one of those things that I just plan everything into my day and take everything one step at a time and use the law of accumulation technique to eventually grow over time. So it's not like I don't think there'll be a radical shift tomorrow, but it is one of those things that if you went to the very first video that I made like 3 years ago and you watch the very most recent video that I released yesterday, there's a significant difference. So that's the law of accumulation and effect there. But I just wanted to say, especially since you're live here, thank you so much for that. And I do really take that stuff to heart, in addition to the wonderful conversations I have with people via email and text message and some phone calls at times too. Anyhow, John Y says, "I'm in that silent period now, waiting to close. Can I wait to wire my cash to close amount after the final walkthrough, after repair requests have been made? Is that how it usually goes?" So John Y, that's a really good point, and I'm glad that you brought it up. So there's two schools of thought on this one, depending on exactly where you are in this silent period, okay? Number one is you can wire your cash to close at any point in time. Here's a trick with your cash to close, though, and wiring it early. You may not have yet received what's called an estimated settlement statement from the title company, letting you know what that exact dollar amount and penny amount is that you need to be wiring. Normally, a title officer and a loan officer will slightly go higher, and then if it's overpaid, then you'll get what I call mailbox money, meaning that after the file closes, you'll be getting a check back from the title company for any overage that was paid, whether it was a single penny or whether it was $100, okay? So that being said, can you wait until after the repair request is done and wait until after the final walkthrough? Yes. What I'd ask you to do is get with your bank. I had a situation a couple of years ago where a young gentleman was purchasing a brand new home, and we were coming up on closing, and we were trying to get his cash to close wired in early. The only issue was his bank was in the state of Kansas. It was a smaller local bank in Kansas. Come to find out, they didn't wire money in that way to a closing account without them being present in Kansas, and yet the gentleman's here. So what I'd ask you to do in short, John Y, is get with your bank. Make sure you understand their wiring practices, especially if you're going to be doing it after your final walkthrough. And I'd like to remind you, your final walkthrough should ideally be done anywhere from 2 to 5 days prior to closing, so that if there's anything that comes up, then you have the opportunity with your trusted real estate advisor to address it head on and make sure that both you and the seller are happy proceeding up to the finish line being your closing day. So that's why I always ask people to do their final walkthrough earlier rather than later. Some people will try to do it the same day or do it after the title signing appointment. The only issue with that is there's so much else going down on actual closing day that if something did pop up on the final walkthrough, then we have a problem, because how are we going to make it happen? And once you close on that home, it's game over for the seller. They're going to walk out and they're going to do their thing, and it's game over for you because you're the new owner of the house, and it's time for you to assume the responsibility of the house. So that being said, it is also important to note that the final walkthrough is not an inspection. It's essentially making sure the house is in the same condition, if not better, than at the time that you made the offer. When I say if not better, that would come courtesy of your repair request. Sometimes what happens whenever people do the repair request and the seller says, hey, I want to make these X, Y, and Z repairs. And the buyer says, hey, you know what? X, Y, and Z repairs are good to go for me. And you do that, right? But then they don't follow through with a home reinspection. And without the home reinspection, that can present an issue. So if you're concerned about certain repairs being made, I would encourage you to get with your trusted real estate advisor and have a home reinspection done for the items that the seller has agreed to fix. All of this going into your final walkthrough will alleviate the majority, if not all, of the concern going into the closing day itself. So John, why? You see there's a lot of different things that can go into that when you're in the silent period, but all of these things are real, and I don't say anything that ever scare you, but only to prepare you so you know what to expect. If you know what to expect, you can always plan for it accordingly. So given that you're in the silent period now, if you need a home inspection, please contact your trusted real estate advisor. And if you need any repair receipts for work that was done from the repair request that the seller agreed to, please make sure that you have those in your buyer file before you get ready to close, and you can go ahead and incorporate those into what's called a homeowner journal. If you're not aware of what a homeowner journal is, please just Google it on my channel or type it into YouTube, and my video about homeowner journal will come up. Okay, so I see some other comments coming in. Dakota Smith says, hello. Hello, Dakota Smith. Thank you for being here today. That's awesome. Revolver Oslet says, hello, my steadily young preacher boy. Hello, Revolver. Glad that you're here. Tyler Heath, Drew, do you remember me? Tyler Heath. Tyler, unfortunately, to be honest, I'm not sure that I do, and I greatly apologize. If you give me some background or context, I probably can remember you pretty quick, so that'd be awesome. Adam Taylor said, hey, Ronnie. Dakota Smith, are you having a good day today? Yes, Dakota, hope you are as well. Gerald Patrick. Okay. Cabbage House, okay. Question, can I pay my down, oh, sorry, Ilya's asking, can I pay my down payment by a cashier's check and closing costs and a personal check, $5,000 to $7,000? Can you do that? Yes. You want to cover that with your trusted real estate advisor, but in short, yes, you could do a down payment in a cashier's check and use a personal check for your closing costs if you wanted to. The trade-off, and the reason that anymore that we would normally ideally like to see the wire go through, is that the wire is quicker to verify, and it's much, hang on, sorry about that. Give me 1 second, Ilya. So if people want to troll the channel, what will happen is I will hide the user on the channel, which means you're no longer allowed. Gerald just got kicked off the channel when I start looking at certain comments. So just to let everybody know, I will kick you right off the channel if you are a troll. And it goes back to the 2 house rules that we have here on this channel, that this is a safe place and that please be respectful and polite. This is for a conversation real-time live with people to help people make sense of real estate and answer the questions that you have. So if you troll the channel, I'm going to kick you off the channel, just to be clear, okay? All right, so Ilya, back to the question that we were working for about the money. So when you're talking about making your down payment with a cashier's check and your buyer closing costs with a personal check, yes, you can do that, Ilya. The trick comes with the cashier's check up front. And the reason this can get tricky is that before the title officer can verify that the earnest money deposit has been received, that money has to clear the account. By virtue of being a wire transfer, that's able to clear the account much faster, which immediately puts both sides normally at ease when the buyer has made their earnest money deposit. They're like, oh, okay, the money's in the escrow account. Whew, we're past stage one. And it just provides a little bit of relief. With a cashier's check, it take a little bit longer to close. If it's a personal check, it takes even longer to verify. So it's something to consider, but at the same time, you can absolutely be able to do that practice if you're most comfortable with it. At the end of the day, that's what it is about. Just get up with your trusted real estate advisor and make sure that you're exploring your options and verify the turn time for how long it's going to be for your title officer to be able to verify that information, okay? Okay, so let's see who else we have coming in. Kobe Higginson says, speaking of inspections, I heard don't meet up or follow the inspection. I heard follow the whole time. I heard the last 30 minutes. Which one would you advise? Kobe, I'm glad that you're asking that question, and it's a great question. So when you're talking about going and attending a home inspection as a home buyer or even as a real estate agent for that matter, it's a really cool idea to do that. They get an idea of what's going on. Generally in practice here in Vegas, I share with the buyers to go whenever they would like to go. At the same time, generally it's best for them to go the last 30 minutes of the home inspection. And the reason for this is simple. A home inspection generally takes between 2 hours and 3 hours to complete. So one is a timing consideration of both your and the home inspector's schedule. If you follow around a home inspector from thing to thing to do, think about what would it be like if someone followed you around from your day to day trying to do your job. It start impeding your ability to focus on what you need to focus on, because especially if they're asking you questions when you're trying to do your job, you're gonna lose your train of thought and your focus of what's going on, right? So if you give the home inspector the opportunity to do their job, to focus 100% on what we want them to focus on, which is inspecting that house to the best of their ability, then if you come at the last 30 minutes, if there's any things that the home inspector identifies they would like to share with you or answer any of the questions that you may have, then they can walk you around to the house while it's still very fresh in their mind and they're getting their report finalized. Normally, that's what home inspectors are doing. They're using technology at these home inspections, and I've seen a lot of home inspectors that will go out the last 30 minutes and start working on your actual report to working on your actual report just for you so they can send it to you as quickly as possible. So I would suggest in practice to please go over the last 30 minutes of the home inspection so that you give them the chance to do their job, and then you can ask them the questions that you have, and they can point out things of concern that raised any red flags to them. But that's a really good question, Kobe, so thank you for that. Okay, looks like we have some other comments coming in. Okay, Dakota Smith, you're out. Bam. Done with that. I don't know why we're getting some trolls lately. I don't know. JJ says, thanks for all your help. I'm going to go sign my contract with my lawyer. Hey, good to hear, JJ. I'm super excited for you. I hope that your closing process is moving along nicely. Let us know how everything plays out for you at the end of the day, JJ. Thank you for checking in with us. It was great to hear from you. Realtor Sarah, I see the thumbs up. Realtor Sarah, thank you for being here. Oh, okay, Tyler, I see. You saying that you were in last week's live stream talking about meeting up in person in Nevada so you can discuss purchasing a resort in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. So what I could do to help you out, Tyler, if that's something that you're looking at doing, is help you find a trusted real estate advisor in Tennessee that would be knowledgeable about that area, the real estate process, and how to help you consummate purchasing a resort in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. Okay. Now, Kobe says, thank you for your help. More popular you are, the more trolls. So if anything, it's a compliment. Hey, thanks, Kobe. I always appreciate keeping it real. It's really cool. I always appreciate that. So You're right. The more, I guess, the better the channel does, and the better the videos do. I guess we're going to pick up more trolls, and I just have to be a little bit more vigilant on screening them out. JJ, my lawyers asked me to bring a check of $18,200, which is my down payment for escrow account. Is that normal? So if your lawyer's asking you to do that, then it probably is normal. You want to have that conversation with your attorney, and they just may be looking at getting everything done and then sending it over to the title company themselves. You could also ask them, if you're more comfortable with the practice, JJ, is if you can just wire the money directly to the escrow company and see what they say. Of course, you could have a conversation with your trusted real estate advisor you're working with and ask them if that's standard procedure and protocol of attorneys in your area. That would probably be step number one and step number two as a process. Step one, talk to your trusted real estate advisor. Step two, ask the attorney if you want to make the wire, if you could just wire it directly, and go from there. But that's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. It just depends on the attorney's practice, the way that they handle those. Okay, so Miisha Shad had watched Should You Rent or Sell Your Home? 6 questions to consider. And Miisha says that this video answered every single question I had. Thank you so much for posting. Miisha, thank you so much for watching that video. I'm glad that it helped you. I'm super thrilled that it answered all the questions that you had. Definitely a lot of considerations that go into that process, so thank you so much. All right. Denise Belt was watching Top 9 Tips for Home Sellers and says another great and informative video. Thank you, Denise. Really appreciate all your support and encouragement. And then Denise made a suggestion about making a video about landscaping and how it can add value to homes, because she has a dream of having a greenhouse. So that's a really good point. It depends on the landscaping. Landscaping will definitely add to your credit appeal and definitely go a long ways towards sellability of the home. And if you do the right things to your landscaping, it can actually help you be able to sell your home for a better price. And it's just a few bucks to be able to do that. So if you put $2,000 in landscaping, you could realistically get between $4,000 and $5,000 back, depending on the kind that depending on the kind of landscaping that you did. Let me check here. So looks like we're getting trolled again. So Tyler, there was a reason I didn't recognize you from last week, and watching your comments, you're gone. Okay. Okay, sorry guys and gals, just trying to moderate this a little bit, make sure that we get rid of the trolls as they're popping up. JJ says, my inspections were done last Friday and everything went well, no major issue. JJ, I'm glad to hear that your inspections went well for you. That's outstanding. Okay, so then we had Spud Bono that watched For Sale by Owner, 6 costly mistakes to avoid, and Spud was sharing their thought process with us about whether For Sale by Owner or using an agent. Get a home inspection to see if you need to fix anything so it doesn't send your deal sideways during escrow. Then spend a few $100 and get your own appraisal from a local appraiser so that you know that you're priced in the right ballpark and your listing agent doesn't lowball you for a quick sell. Only accept if a pre-qual. If it is an approved from an underwriter, not just a loan officer, ask for the list of approval conditions. If you're in a state like California that does not require attorney closings, talk to the title company if you're doing for sale by owner. If you're selling furniture, etc., along with the house and the buyer is financing the deal, don't include personal property in contract. I could go on, but these spring to mind. So everything that Spud said in that comment, it was quite extensive, but everything that they said is actually true. It was very true. And I had shared with Spud, thanking him or her for sharing their insights with us, because those are all the steps that take in practice: verifying that the buyer's financing is good, checking on approval conditions, and what was the method that a loan officer used to issue the pre-approval to make sure that my seller's not going to have issues. I always provide comparative market analysis, obviously, to sellers, and I discussed the appraisal process with them. One of the key things that Spud said there, though, is getting a home pre-inspection prior to going on the market. It's critically important to ensure that you do that and make the repairs ahead of time, keeping track of what repairs were made and keeping the receipts on hand for that. then you could turn around and offer that home inspection along with the repairs that have already been made to a prospective buyer, which will increase the transparency of the process. And normally buyers will pay more money for those kind of properties if they already feel good about the property, the price feels good to them, and they know the home maintenance has been done. I have seen buyers in practice pay more and those homes sell a lot faster by just simply getting a home pre-inspection done first. Okay. Miss Diva, getting ready for out-of-state move. Your videos have been helpful. Miss Diva, I saw some of your comments come in over the last couple days. Thank you so much for your support, and I'm glad that the videos are really helping you. Really thought it was awesome that you shared your thoughts with me and let me know what you were doing. So if you have any suggestions as you're planning that out-of-state move, Miss Diva, please let me know, because I've made a few videos about how to pull this off. But if there's something in specific that you think of that could be more helpful, just let me know and I'll take a closer look at it and add it to a list of videos to make. Ilya says, what's a way and process to find a homeowner insurance company? Geico runs high, the builder's insurance is lower. Is it advisable to take the builder's affiliate insurance company? Pros and cons. So Ilya, you make a really good point when it comes to homeowners insurance. You know, I have made a few videos about homeowners insurance, mainly outlining the different types of homeowners insurance and the different considerations you may want to consider when it comes to homeowners insurance. Namely, when you're talking about the price of homeowners insurance, you can take a like in kind policy from like a Liberty Mutual, a Geico, to a builder's insurance. But the most important thing that you need to take into consideration is what kind of coverage are you getting? What is the deductible on that coverage? And is it going to provide you the coverage that you need? You know, the more expensive a homeowner's insurance policy is, if it has the right kind of coverages and the add-ons to it that cover your home in the case of something happening to it, it'll kind of justify the cost. Now, if it's just really expensive for no point in life, then that's not cool. But in those videos, I'm outlining the different things that you want to consider, because I carry different riders on my house depending on what's going on. And my homeowner's insurance is a bit more expensive, obviously, than other people's insurance for what they pay, because they're looking for the best price, while I'm looking for the best coverage. I don't, if my house falls down tomorrow, gets burned up, or, you know, earthquake hits Las Vegas somehow, you know, my house is gone, I need to be able to replace my house brick for brick, to rebuild it brand new. That's called a replacement cost. And where people get tripped up sometimes is they look at what's called cash value in insurance. And when you're looking at cash value, it's a depreciated amount of what your home would have been worth based upon your coverage. Where a replacement value costs more, but your replacement value will be, let's say that happened 20 years into the future, right? So if it cost, let's just use an example. If it cost $500,000 to build that house today, and 20 years from now it costs $800,000 to build that house, then a cash replacement value would only cover you for maybe $500,000 if you're lucky, but a replacement cost coverage will cover you for the 800. So that's why I try to term it in an easier to remember way as brick by brick coverage, brick by brick rebuilding. So when you're looking at the prices, Ilya, of your homeowner's insurance, all I'd ask you to do is consider what kind of coverage is most important to you, and ensure that you have that coverage within your financial comfort zone, that you have the best policy for you and yours to make sure that you're covered, okay? Okay. Azian Tech, thank you so much for being here. You're asking, is there any website you recommend to find out the average appreciation rate of real estate in your local area? So that's a really good question. And normally what you can do is contact a trusted real estate advisor in your local marketplace that can assist you with that. I get reports sent to me normally every quarter from various companies that give me information, and they're normally purchase type information that I'm getting, that keeps a track by zip code. I mean, Las Vegas is a big area, obviously, and we have 52 primary zip codes in what's considered Las Vegas Valley, which comprises 3 cities. So when we're talking about that 52 zip codes, you're going to have market appreciation that swings from zip code to zip code by different amounts, different percentages, different price points of homes. And it's important to be able to stratify that. If you're looking at the bird's eye, and that's what you're looking for home appreciation, then, you know, the video that I made in the beginning of the year had the last 12 months up to that point when I made that video. But Zillow and, you know, other websites may have what the bird's eye estimated appreciation is. But when you're talking about your local marketplace, the best source of information is your local real estate agent. Your local trusted real estate advisor is going to be able to hook you up with that information. and point you in the right direction and send those reports to you if it's something that's helpful to you. You could set that up with them. But that's a great question. I'm glad that you raised it. Thank you. JJ, okay. Is it normal to do the inspection before you sign the contract? So that's a great question, JJ. It really depends whether you're on the buying and selling side. What I was talking about with the home pre-inspection a moment ago is trying to encourage sellers into best practice of getting that done up front before they list their home. And from a selling dynamic, it's very, very powerful because buyers will normally, when you have your home inspection done during the closing process, and there's nothing wrong with this, but it's very true, that if there's, let's say, $500 of repairs that really need to be made, a lot of buyers it will become a bigger idea in their mind than the $500. They'll freak out. And the reason this is completely normal is that we feel a little bit of anxiety, we feel a little bit nervous because we're making a very big purchase, and it's completely understandable. At the same time, if realistically it only costs $500 to fix it, what happens is sometimes buyers will turn around and ask for like $2,500 or $3,000 to fix something, or ask for credits in that amount, which is reducing a seller's margin. So the easiest way to alleviate that is for a seller to get a home pre-inspection done, make the repair receipts available to the incoming buyer. If the buyer wants to have a home inspection done while they're in the closing process, then that's something that they can do. And if there's any additional things they would like to ask, then that's a conversation at that time. So it's just best practice for a seller to get that done up front, going back to when we're home buyers, and all of us are this way, I think, or this way is a lot of us, and we're in the closing process, then we kind of freak out a little bit. And when we see certain things on the house, we start making up numbers, and those numbers are normally not right. So we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing and we're balancing out the reality of the situation. And we're also taking a breath, as I like to always call it, hashtag JTAB, just take a breath, and reassess the situation logically and understand what's going on and what kind of repairs the seller may or may not be willing to make, and move on whether that's going to be a comfortable situation for the prospective buyer or not. So you did say you're on the buying side. Yeah, normally a home inspection, it depends on what's customary in your area, but here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and a lot of states around the country, it's completely normal to have the home inspection done while in the closing process. And I normally encourage you to get that done as soon as possible. Generally, when we open up with families here, we open up the closing process with buying families here in Las Vegas, Nevada. What I personally do in my real estate practice is that home inspection will be ordered on day one. And I'll normally try to have the home inspector out there on day 2 or day 3 if I can't get them out the same day, because I'm trying to get it done as quickly as possible so that we can head off at the pass any prospective issues, and also know if it's going to be a waste of time for the buyer, if it's going to make them completely nervous or uncomfortable to back out, find the next house, or if it's something they can work with and live with. So it's really important to get that kind of stuff done as quick as possible when you're in your due diligence period. Ideally, within the first 2 to 4 days is ideal. Okay. Miss Diza, thank you. Great will do. Miss Diza, thank you. Ilya says, thank you. I will watch your videos. Ilya, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here, and the emails again that you sent me. JJ, I'm on the other buyer side. Okay. As in Tech, thanks so much. Really enjoy your videos, by the way. What's your view on sellers asking for the buyer to put 30% down if the bank appreciation comes in lower than expected? How low of a loan to value should a buyer go? Okay. That's a really good question, and it's a really intriguing question that you brought it up. So there's a lot of sophistication in asking that question, actually, and I appreciate you asking it. It's a really good one. So when you're saying what's my take on the sellers asking for a buyer to put down 30%, sometimes a different amount down, like I'm assuming that you're talking about a 30% down payment compared to maybe a 15% or a 20% down payment or something. Sometimes what happens is, depending on the price point of the home, the seller just feels more comfortable with a buyer being able to close on the property, the more money they're able to put down on the purchase. It's more to do with the seller's thought process. Now, if it's not your process and that's not something that's realistic to you, then you have your trusted real estate advisor write the down payment amount that you're comfortable with and that you were planning on doing. And either the seller is going to agree or disagree at that point. Now, if it is a multiple bid situation, offering more money on the down payment, while it's not going to necessarily increase the amount of money from the seller's point of view at closing, if that's what adds that layer of security for them that helps them to accept your offer, it could be a wise tactic. Another tactic on it, because of the second point where you brought up here, when you're saying bank appreciation, I'm assuming you're talking about an appraisal. So when you're talking about the appraisal comes in lower than expected, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. And I think it really sucks that people do this, but it is very legal to do this. So, and I have seen this play out, especially in higher price point homes. So if you put down 30% on a house, right? And you were planning on doing a 20% down payment, okay? And let's say that appraisal comes in 10% less than the contracted value. Let's say that you're buying like a $2 million house and the appraisal came in at 10% less, so $200,000. But you have that additional $200,000 of your $600,000 that you put up for your down payment for that 30% of a $2 million sales price, right? What could happen? Okay, as in tech, sorry about that, saw that we dropped again. So what I was going with this is what happens if that house doesn't appraise in that situation? What could happen is the listing agent gets over with the seller, and the seller and the listing agent start talking and say, hey, you know what? They only need 20% down to be able to close on this home. Why don't we ask them to come up with the 10% or credit 10% of that down payment to the difference of the appraised value and the sales price of the home, right? So that can get a little bit dirty. And I don't think that's really cool that people do that. It is, again, it is a negotiation tactic that some would explore and some would take. And it would be up to you whether that's something that you want to do or not. Ultimately, I'm not a big fan, whether I'm on listing side or buying side. Obviously, I represent my client's best interest. That is my fiduciary duties to do, which makes it interesting as a trusted real estate advisor that we're one of very few professions like an attorney that would have what's called fiduciary duties to clients and upholding their best interest. At the same time, where I'm going with this is that it can be nasty. So you always want to have a comparative market analysis done by your trusted real estate advisor prior to making an offer on a home. You need to know what the ballpark is, and you also need to have in your mind's eye how much that home is worth to you and how much, if you decide to overpay for the home, it's a comfortable number to you. And practice, if you're in a super heated up market and it's a strong multiple bid situation and this house is like your must-have house, then generally you'd probably not want to pay more than 3% to 5% over list if you have to. And I keep saying if you have to because we all know you got to appraise, and a seller's got to be realistic at some point. It's something that I discuss with my buyers. It's like playing a devil's advocate in a way. You discuss best case, worst case, probable case with the buyer. You discuss best case, worst case, probable case with the seller. At the same time, educating them about the process on both sides, every step of the way, how an appraisal works, renegotiations work, and how to handle different situations that may arise, right? At the same time, not getting so overwhelming, ideally, that they're just like, the deer in the headlight look. So that being said, it really comes down to comfort and it comes down to strategy. So what you want to do is you want to have that conversation with your trusted real estate advisor. And if you want to make a 30% down payment or whatever, hey, rock on. But if that appraisal is coming in less and they try to go after that difference that you need to be able to consummate the purchase and the difference of the appraisal, then there's going to need to be a renegotiation because that's not cool. And the way I always present this to buyers when they're thinking about seriously lowballing a property or whatever is, would you accept your own offer? If you were the seller, would you accept your own offer? If the answer to that question is no, it's the truest litmus test that I know whether you're making a right offer or not, or if you're just being crazy. Because sometimes people want to be crazy because everybody says, oh, buy low and sell high. And the problem is when you try to do that with real estate, sometimes it works, but a lot of time it doesn't. And it's not realistic. You're gonna set up a negotiation from the wrong place right out of the gate. And if it was the right house for a prospective buyer, they just lost. If the seller's not willing to play ball with them anymore, there's no rule that says they have to negotiate. They can just say, hey, you know what? You admitted your offer. You offended me. I'm not working with you. They can do that. So it's just really interesting the way negotiations come out. And I was asked to make more negotiation videos. So I do have a lot more negotiation videos coming out this year on both selling side and buying side. So it is something to take into consideration. Your last point here, how low of a loan to value should a buyer go? Hey, look, the lower the loan to value that you have, like if you could have a 70% in the case of a 30% down payment, and you're talking about a 70% loan to value ratio, that's freaking awesome. Because the more that you can put down on your house, realistically, the better off you are because you're paying off your mortgage. I mean, if all of us were in a position that we could buy homes cash, I mean, that was the most ideal situation for anybody is to be able to buy cash. At the same time, if you're in a position that you could do 20% or 30% down, then at least with a 20% down payment, you're not going to carry a private mortgage insurance. So that's very helpful. If you just want to pay down more, obviously your monthly mortgage is also going to be less. You're not going to have the private mortgage insurance. So all of these things start adding up and saving you money over the amortized life of the loan. So it's a really good question. Ultimately, it depends on one's financial situation. You hear different schools of thought. Dave Ramsey, I love the guy. He makes a lot of really wonderful stuff about financial guidance and helping people make sense of things. But one thing that I do disagree with the gentleman about is when he's talking about real estate and down payment amounts, because I'm in the practice. He's on ideal practices and he's sharing things that make a lot of sense. At the same time, if you look at the realities of how much money people realistically have for the down payment and for the buyer closing costs, it's not practical. If that was a case, everybody's trying to save 10, 15, 20% down for a mortgage, nobody would ever buy a house. And at the same time, you have market appreciation. Statistically, in a 100-year average in real estate, you're looking at 3% home appreciation year over year nationwide, statistically for the last 100 years. If that's the case, and it's going to take them 10 to 15 years to be able to save up 20% for a $250,000 house, which is $50,000, right? Then what happens over that same 10 to 15 years? You're getting compounded by the market appreciation. If the statistic is 3% annually over 10 years, and I know that if I was really going to play this math, that these numbers would be a little bit different. At the same time, for the sake of argument, just for the sake of an easy example, you'd be between 30 and 45% more expensive for that $250,000 house, which just made that house an almost $400,000 house. And the buyer that was planning to save 15 to 20% for that house was planning for a $250,000 house, not a $400,000 house. So you start going backwards, and it's where the reality of life sets in with what's called opportunity cost. We all experience opportunity cost every single day in our everyday. By virtue of making this video, what's the opportunity cost of me making this video compared to the rest of the schedule that I have to consummate today, right? I have a couple of appointments coming up this afternoon. So how long can I be on the live stream? How many questions can I answer? That's an example of an opportunity cost. But the way that I've designed the live stream is I give myself roughly an hour if necessary for the live stream, because that's what I've noticed on average. We normally go somewhere about an hour long with all the wonderful engagement we have. But the other thing is that in your life, you're going to have an opportunity cost. If you are having a conversation with one of your friends, what else could you have been doing at that time? If you're at work, what else could you have been doing at that time? So it goes back to an opportunity cost of time and understanding how that plays into your life when you're working on saving up money. So is it an ideal practice that Mr. Ramsey shares? Absolutely it is. And it's one that would be awesome if it was the reality for most people. But most people don't even have like $1,000 in the bank. So how are they going to be able to save up 20% of a home as opposed to using a low down payment or a no down payment mortgage to help them buy their home? Meanwhile, the next 10 to 15 years they're in that home, now they're reaping the rewards of that home equity over the long haul. Now, we all know that real estate goes up and down and all around, right? But statistically, we know that real estate goes up and to the right, meaning that it's increasing in appreciation over time. Now, the key word there is over time. So it's important to take that into consideration. So if that same family that might now have like $3,000 or they've saved $5,000 in the bank for their emergency fund or whatever, right? But their home now has $100,000 of equity in it, how does that benefit them when they choose to go buy their next home? Now they could make the 20% down payment if they wanted to, right? But we all have to start somewhere, and we got to be honest with why we're buying a home, how long we're going to live in the home, and what are the goals for that home. If we're honest with ourselves and we're honest with the loan officer and the trusted real estate advisor you're working with, then we can help you devise a game plan to help you get to where you want to be. Most of our first home is never going to be our dream home. Most of our first home is our starting place, and that's what we got to be clear about. Very few of us have it within our financial capability to go buy our dream home for our very first home. If that's your case, freaking rock on, but it's not most of our case. So we have to start somewhere with and understand the opportunity cost of time and understand a principle called time value of money. So I know that I might sound a little bit more like an economist or an accountant there, and my apologies if that's the case, but that's how I think, because when I was going to university, I was going in for accountancy. So that's probably where some of this education and finance comes from. But I'm sharing it with you because I see it in real life all the time. And I see, unfortunately, people say, oh, I'm going to wait for the market to collapse. I'm going to wait for the market to collapse. 2008 is going to happen again. Well, go back and watch that 2019 video. All of those were objective facts that were presented along with the links for people to conduct their own independent research. The indicators and trends aren't there. And if you're thinking that a 2008 is going to happen tomorrow, it's not. That was like essentially a perfect storm. It had been over 80 years since the last time that a crash in the economy happened at that magnitude. So you got to be realistic with yourself and be realistic about what's going on, and keep it real. And that's really what it comes down to, because my concern is there's a lot of people hurting themselves right now with these fallacious thought processes of them thinking they know where the market's going to go, and it's not going there. And with that fallacious thought process, they're going to realize, and they may be in a position in the future that will be in a position that they cannot be able to buy a home because they're not earning enough income and they didn't buy when they could have bought a home. So that's where I really feel for people. And it's one of the reasons why I go live to answer questions live. It's one of my driving passions why I make so many videos, is to help educate people. Look, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. At the end of the day, I can keep making videos, I can't make people watch. But by virtue of trying to make better and better videos about more and more content, more and more topics from big to small and everything in between, at least it's accessible to them. There's a difference between being truly accessible and then having access to. That's a whole different conversation for another day. But the videos on YouTube, anyone can access. It's not costing you any money to watch the videos. It costs me money to make the videos, but it doesn't cost you any money to watch the videos. It doesn't take anything out of your day except for a little bit of time to educate yourself about what is most of our biggest investment, our home. So isn't that worth a little bit of education? And my thought is yes. And then you're joining me today, you're probably thinking the same thing. That's why you're here and why our channel continues to grow. As we make more videos, then the hope is that we would eventually at some point have, seriously, tens of millions of people subscribe to the channel that are knowing how to make well-informed real estate decisions that are right for them and theirs, so that we can avoid that 2008 situation from ever happening again, ideally in our lifetimes. And we can make well-informed decisions so we know the questions to ask, we know what to look for, and we know what to be prepared for moving forward into the future. So a little bit more insight into the reasons why I do these things. Let's see. Great question, though. You see, sometimes you get me on a tangent, and that's how some of these videos end up so long on the live stream, is that it's just wonderful engagement. And I love the engagement. You guys are so smart. You guys and gals are so smart, and it's just a pleasure having this conversation with you. Adam Vaughn, you have been great. You have been a great input on my home buying process. House on the market since September. We were the first offer, gave them what they were asking with help with $6,000 closing costs, had the inspection, minor roof leak, and separating utility conduit outside, do the dirt settling outside. They agreed to fix it, now just waiting for final underwriting. Adam, thank you so much. I'm glad that you checked in with me and let me know what your situation was and that these videos are helping you out. Very, very awesome. That's the kind of stuff that really gets me going, and it keeps me pushing harder and harder to not only stay consistent with the release schedule of the videos, but also to make them even better. So I really appreciate you doing that, and I appreciate everyone that shares with me what's going on. Of course, the more I see your name in live stream or in the comments, the more I recognize you, and I can immediately start placing everybody off the top. Like Darren, I see a comment coming in from Darren. Darren's been watching for a while now, so I know who Darren is, even though we've never met in person. And that's where it comes back to, like, being more family here than anything, and connecting you. And one of the rewarding experiences about the technology that we have at our disposal right now with being able to do this. Just like Ilya was talking about, he was happy to catch me today live so we can engage live in real time. I absolutely agree with it. So much better than a text message, so much better than a phone call, so much better than anything short of meeting in person. So it's really cool. So anyways, just something that I think is awesome. Lisa Mack, another name that I recognize all the time. So let's go into Lisa Mack. Lisa Mack says, hi, question. I live in the Bay Area. Houses are too pricey. Is it possible to buy my first home without having a 20% down payment? Houses are like 400 to 600s. I do not mind having a mortgage. So Lisa Mack, great question. Yes, absolutely possible. Get in touch with a trusted real estate advisor and a local loan officer in the Bay Area. Have the conversation with them about different loan programs that are out there for you. There are no down payment and low down payment programs in the Bay Area. If memory serves me correct, there is a specific program for low income families. If you would qualify, I don't know, but there are thresholds for those kind of programs that there are threshold requirements for certain type of programs that go for low income, and then there's also low and no down payment programs called down payment assistance programs for those of the average income, so long as they don't exceed whatever the cap is in the county for the income. Like here in Las Vegas is like $95,000, which is a lot of money. I mean, let's be honest, 95,000, a lot of money. So, but with that, as long as the family makes less than 95,000, they can qualify for a lot of the different down payment assistance programs that they might be eligible for based upon other factors. All of those factors and all those considerations in review specific to the Bay Area is why you want to talk to your local loan officer and review your mortgage options. That's probably going to be your next best step, to be honest with you, Elizabeth. So please go ahead and do that. The best way to overcome the fear, which we know is just false evidence appearing real, is simply gaining knowledge. And with knowledge comes power, and with knowledge, power provides us with comfort and confidence moving forward. Let's go ahead and rip it off. Let's get rid of that fear and dispel the fear by getting the knowledge that we need to make a well-informed decision. So I'm glad that you came in today, and I hope you're still watching, listening to the answer to your question here. And I hope that you do just that, so you can explore your options. Even if things didn't go the way that you would like them to go, at least now you have a game plan moving forward, and you know for a fact the steps you need to take, because the local loan officer will share with you what steps you need to take to be able to get on the right track to purchase your new home. Great question. Thank you for that. Darren Carter, that's why we went FHA, Andrew. No way for us to save 20% down on a home. My wife and I make good money, but not that good. A great point. FHA is an extremely popular loan. Obviously, a VA home loan is for veterans and active duty. I personally, former Marine here, definitely have a VA loan on my house. But the VA and FHA loans have a lot of different similarities to them. So FHA is just for that reason. It originally came out to help people be able to purchase a home whenever the mandatory requirement for conventional at the time was like 10 or 20%, right? They went from being 20 to 15 to 10 to 5, and now you can get a conventional loan if you qualify for it down to 3%. So FHA is a 3.5%. Both have their own pros and cons and their own trade-offs. And that's why I always ask you, and Liza Mack, thank you for letting me know that you're still here. But that's why I ask you to get in a conversation with a local loan officer, because there's so many variables and factors that go into a true mortgage loan pre-approval letter. So don't be deceived by the little crap that you see on these internet adverts, radio adverts, or whatever. Get a pre-approval in 5 minutes. It just don't work like that. What they're giving you is a pre-qualification letter that you might as well blow your nose on, because it's absolutely worthless. Your information has to be verified. Your financial stuff, your income, assets, credit, and employment have to be verified to get a bona fide true loan pre-approval letter. And to know exactly what your mortgage loan options look like, that's what it takes. So if you get that stuff done, then you'll know what programs you qualify for. Anyways, onwards, upwards. JJ just spoke with my agent regarding the escrow account check. He said it is normal to bring a blank check to the lawyer. He will tell me what information to write on check. Perfect. So JJ, thank you for checking in with us. For reference, anyone tuning in right now, JJ is in a state that requires attorneys to be part of the real estate practice, or excuse me, the real estate closing process. JJ is a buyer, and he had asked earlier in today's live stream if it was normal for an attorney to ask them to bring a certain dollar amount or a check into the attorney's office for the purpose of the down payment, earnest money deposit, closing cost, right? And JJ got back to us that he just had a conversation with his trusted real estate advisor regarding the escrow account check. And he said that it is normal in the attorney state to bring a blank check to the attorney, and then he will tell, the attorney will tell him what he's supposed to write on the check from there. So JJ, thank you for that update. I really appreciate that. Obviously here in Las Vegas, we're not an attorney state. So the more information that comes out in practice with people like yourself, the more educated we all grow and become together. So thank you for that. The Fashionista says, I have a question. How do you sell a vacant house in a low performing area? Thanks. So the Fashionista, that's a great question. It really depends on your marketing strategy and what you have going on. Obviously, you want a trusted real estate advisor that knows the market and how to appeal to the appropriate audience and demographic that may be pursuing a property in that area. If you consider your audience, you work your marketing strategy backwards, then you'll know where your ideal target audience reside. Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Are they on YouTube? Where are they? And that's where you need to be exploring. Are they on Craigslist? Where are they and how do you find them to attract the attention to the house? Do open houses in that area work? Do they not work? Is it safe? Is it unsafe? These are the questions you want to have with your trusted real estate advisor about best marketing practices to get your home sold for that specific region or area of town. That's a really good question. Now, as a vacant home, I would strongly suggest to you and your listing agent, if you're the agent in this case, please take it for immediate action and visit the property a minimum of every 3 to 7 days and flush all the toilets, turn on all the water to make sure that little U shape underneath all the plumbing stays with the water in it. If that water evaporates, you're going to get a really bad smell like a sewer gas because that's what it is. And if it dries out, it can also let bugs and everything else come in through those tubes, depending if there's cracks in the plumbing and in the sewer line somewhere down the line, not maybe necessarily on that property, but anywhere they can get in there and crawl back up in there. So it's one of the simplest things that we can do to make sure that everything works, make sure the gaskets stay healthy because gaskets normally need to be a little bit wet, a little bit of moisture to them so they don't crack. And it's something that will help preserve that house and make it easier for you on the home inspection side. But the marketing side is where it's going to become critically important in your pricing strategy and maybe any incentives that you might need to offer to a buyer to purchase in that area. Maybe from a selling dynamic, maybe you're offering the pay the buyer's closing cost. Maybe you're offering to pay obviously for a 1 or 2 year home warranty. There's a lot of different tactics that can be taken, and that's why you want to have that conversation with your trusted real estate agent, real estate advisor, to see what's going on with that area and anything that they would suggest as far as best practices to get it sold. So that's really good. Thank you for bringing that up. JJ, what are the benefits for a first-time homeowner? What are the benefits? Well, you get to become a homeowner. Beyond that, you may be asking me about tax incentives. There's been a lot of changes to the tax code, and I'd ask you to have that conversation with a tax advisor or an accountant, whoever you use to do your taxes, because there have been so many changes in it. Obviously, I'm not a tax advisor or an tax accountant, so I don't want to give you a bum scoop there. But obviously, the benefits of becoming a first-time homeowner, I think we've outlined several of them in today's live stream, to be honest with you, as far as long-term home appreciation over time, as far as having the pride of home ownership, as far as having a set mortgage amount that short of a refinance or something is going to stay pretty much the same for the life of that loan. So you don't have to worry about rent increasing anymore because now you have a known quantity known as your mortgage payment. So there's a lot of benefits there. Now you may want to go back and check out the 4 things that could surprise you as a brand new homeowner. One of the biggest surprises that sometimes come up to people is that your property taxes could go up. And that really depends on your county. Normally, property taxes are calculated on a percentage basis. And it's important to know how that works and how that plays out in your area. Your trusted real estate advisor should be able to guide you accordingly on that. So, but it's something to plan and prepare for. It's not like it's going to, depending on the price of the home. I mean, if it's an average price home in your area, it's not like it's going to blow out your mortgage payment thousands of dollars or anything. It's like, my property taxes went up last year. It added, I believe, $7 a month to my mortgage. So it's not going to kill you, but it is something to realize that does happen depending on what's going on with the market. So there are, in my opinion, and this is well before me ever becoming a trusted real estate advisor, massive benefits of being a homeowner by virtue of owning your own house, paying down your house over time, and building up equity in yourself. And I didn't buy my first home until I was in my early 30s. If I was in a position that I could have done it in my 20s, I would have absolutely done it. But I was active duty and I was all over the world. So I didn't really have a chance to do that, to be honest with you. At the same time, as soon as I had a chance, I put into motion an action plan so that within 5 to 7 years of getting out of the military, being from the Marine Corps, then I'd be able to buy a home. So it's something that I'd hope that you'd be able to do as well. OL Waves. Hi, OL. Thank you. Do you believe the NOD will increase this year? Notice of default. That is a really good question. So for reference, anyone that's watching this, if you see the word or the acronym NOD, it means notice of default. A notice of default is issued after a homeowner has become 3 months delinquent on their mortgage payment. So in other words, a homeowner didn't make their mortgage payment for 3 months. It will kick off the foreclosure proceeding, which the very first step in that is a notice of default. Having said that, do I think it'll increase this year? I really don't know. I'm really hoping not, quite frankly. And I don't think that we should see an increase this year. And the reason why I don't think we should see an increase is that the average home buyer right now across the United States is putting down roughly 10%. According to that study that I shared with everybody in the 2019 predictions video, they're putting down an average of 10%, which gives them a loan to value of 90%. So when we look at that and we compare it to like 2008, before when we started seeing high rates of notice of defaults happening, the average loan to value ratio at the time was like 99% or 99.375%. It was extremely high, extremely high. So it's like most people are only putting down 1% to get into a home. So then that means people were tapping themselves out. There's a lot of predatory loans, as we now know, going on, and a lot of people just being greedy. If we face the facts and are honest here, just being greedy here. Back then with speculating the market. At the same time, when it comes to notice of defaults, it is something I'm watching. And I haven't noticed an increase in them, though I've been watching them for the last 18 months, but it is something that it's one of those latent things in the market. So that's why I watch it. It is a sign of things to come if you start seeing it spike. Now, what I can share with you where we are in many places across the country right now, not only here in Las Vegas, is that we're not seeing a huge amount of notice of defaults. We're seeing very low single-digit distressed sales, being short sales and foreclosures in our marketplace. So these are normally good things. So it's one of those things that we need to keep an eye on, though, OL. And if you want to share with us and keep us posted on any observations that you have about notice of default rates, please let us know. It is a strong indicator of the market as presented in the 2019 predictions video. So Liza Mac says, yes, still here. Thank you. Glad that you got what you needed from that. Liza Mac, the fashionista says, can you sell your home without a clear title? No. Nope. 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 Must have clear title. So get with the title officer on that. Those liens will have to be satisfied clear. Any judgments, encumbrances against that property must be cleared to be able to sell that home. So they can become a negotiable item between a buyer and a seller, though typically they are a seller's cost to clear those. So it's a great question, the fashionista, but can you sell without a clear title? No. Ilya, Andrew, question, buying points or using money to increase my down payment, what saves more money over the course of the loan? Depends on how long you're going to live in the house, Ilya. Buying points could be a good idea if you're going to be in the house in excess of 15 years. Now, Ilya, from the messages that you sent me directly, I know you to be a very smart guy. So what I would tell you to do is get onto a calculator, break out the math, and see what kind of point would be reducing your mortgage for the cost of the point. Now, it is important to know when we're talking about points in the mortgage world, then you're generally looking at like a eighth to a quarter of a point, coming at 1% of the value of the property. So if you're looking at a $500,000 house, then that 1 point being an eighth or a quarter of a percent is $5,000. So for you to make up that $5,000 and hit your break-even point, that's where you need to break out the math and see if that's going to long-term make a good if that's going to be a good decision for you based upon your situation and what makes you comfortable. Generally, obviously, paying down your mortgage balance, for every $10,000 that you put down, generally you can see roughly between $25 and $100, depending on the rate that you get, less on per month on your mortgage. So, I mean, that's a pretty big spread, and that's just how significant a mortgage interest rate can be. So you want to have that conversation with your local loan officer as well and play out some different scenarios with them. I'm sure they'd be happy to review your options with you and share with you the pros and cons and the trade-offs of which. And at the end of the day, hopefully you can make a well-informed decision based upon that conversation with your loan officer. Brown Gal 00 says, I called some banks and asked them about getting pre-approved. They said the home has to be built before you can get approved. Is this true? No, it's not. No, it's not at all. Looking at new construction. No, not at all. So Brown Gal, I'm glad that you bring that up. You get a loan pre-approval whether a house is built or not. I mean, just because you're looking at buying new construction right now, why would the house have to be built? Now, if you're looking at buying a new construction property and you're talking about a custom construction from start to finish, there still has to be a budget on mind. And very few lenders can give you a loan for the land, the utilities that may need to be brought onto that land, and the actual construction of that property. They're called construction the perm loans, but it's one of those situations that really depends when you talk about new construction. Are we talking custom? Are we talking about standard, what we consider traditional new construction being built from a builder? But all the same, no, you can get a pre-approval without a house being built. I mean, you could change your mind and decide you want to go to a different new builder that already has a home, or you could change your mind and decide to buy a resale home. Your loan pre-approval is based upon your income, your assets, your credit, and your employment situation, not the house being built. The only caveat to that, again, is if you're talking about a custom home build from dirt, of buying the land and building it literally from the ground up yourself. So that's the only caveat there. If that has any specific lending requirements or rules on that. All the same, I would imagine that a worthwhile lender worth their salt would be wanting to make sure that before they started you on that adventure, you'd have to have the financial capability to purchase the land. You'd have to have the financial capability to bring the utilities onto that land if necessary. And if you were requiring a loan for that, as many people do, then they would be wise to review your situation and make sure that it's going to work out in your best interest and also their financial institution's best interest. So it's a great question. So please, if that's a question that you're getting, and you said banks, which is plural, it's pretty curious that that comes up. Thank you. It's from a builder. I have no idea, to be honest with you, why they would tell you that, especially with that situation being directly from a new home builder, why the house would have to be built. It defies logic. It doesn't make sense. Talk to a local loan officer and get around that, because that doesn't make sense. You'd be approved without it being built. Ashton Tech, do you have a good method, rules of thumb in comparing monthly costs between houses, co-ops, and condos? I'm deciding between them, but it's sort of like comparing apples and oranges sometimes. Yeah, absolutely it is. And in fact, it's more like comparing an apple and a cucumber. Because when you're talking about different HOA fees, whether it's a single family home, a condominium, a co-op is a little bit, it's completely different. Let's be clear about that. Or townhomes, condos, right? When we're looking at that, it really depends on the amount of the HOA. Now, we know that the HOA is not going to contribute to the value of your home. We know that the HOA is a payment above and beyond your monthly principal, interest, taxes, and homeowners insurance, right? We know this. So when you're comparing the differences of which, the reason I say it's like an apple and cucumber is because with a single family home, it could be a much lower HOA. Now, I can't speak to where you are in the country, but what I can speak to is here in Las Vegas, Nevada, typically a condominium comes with $150 or more HOA. Now, I know depending on where you're located in the country, you're like $150 a month for HOA. That's a joke. I know some people coming in from California that pay like $500 a month or more, right? So, in a monthly HOA. Well, here's the deal. In Las Vegas, Nevada, that's higher than most of the single family homes HOAs. My HOA in my community is like $180 a month, but my HOA is also a guard gated community. So there's different amenities that go into it. And there's only so many of those type of communities in Las Vegas and in your area. So when you're considering about the HOA, what are you getting for the HOA? Are you getting community features? Are you getting, what does it cover? If you're talking about a condo or townhome, when was the last time there were improvements done to the property? Are you going to be opening yourself up for any kind of special improvements that, special improvement assessments that may come due in the future if there's not a high enough reserve balance in the HOA, if the financials aren't of a right level to be able to provide new roofing or new paint or new whatever that needs to happen to those units. So when you're talking about comparing apples to apples, that's a big one of them. Obviously, a trade-off is a single family home is normally a little bit more to maintain than the condo townhome, but is it really when you consider the amount of the HOA? So those are the considerations you have to make based upon your financial situation and ultimately what type of property makes you the most comfortable moving forward. Now with the co-op, obviously you have to be approved to purchase in there. So that brings in a whole different consideration. Will you get approved to move into that co-op? Okay, JJ, what are the best contingencies to protect your escrow money? There are several, JJ. There are several ways of doing that. So, and there are a lot of contingencies built into a contract that just do that right out of the gate. But talk to your local trusted real estate advisor that you're working with, JJ, because that does change. The contracts do change state to state. While there's generally bigger ticket items that you could always cover yourself with your due diligence period, from a home inspection to an appraisal contingency, inspection contingencies. There's a financing contingency, underwriting contingency. There's a lot of different contingencies. So I have made videos about that, by the way, and they haven't been released yet, but I have made some videos for this year that I'm talking about more about that kind of stuff. But in short, the quickest and most direct route, JJ, to get answers to that question is to talk to your trusted real estate advisor about what kind of contingencies are best in your area so that you can be prepared for that, okay? Ilya, you are awesome, Andrew. I appreciate your availability and feedback. Ilya, thank you so much. Really appreciate your kind words, sir. The fashionista, thank you. Should I get a new lawyer to help us get clear title or keep calling the old lawyer who does not return calls to clear the title and sell the house? Thank you. Hey, look, the fashionista, that's a great question. At the end of the day, if you're not getting service and you're not getting results from the people that you're trying to work with and they're not giving you the time of day to call you back, call someone else. I mean, that's like a no-brainer, right? You need to be working with a trusted real estate advisor, loan officer, attorney, title company, whomever that's going to give you the respect and the dignity that you deserve, okay? So if they're not getting back to you, this is a problem. Now, it's also important to understand that if they gave you a timeline of when they expect an answer, there might have been some due diligence that was going in behind the scenes for research that may need to be done to be able to best address and answer your question and provide you the route going forward. So it's important to be clear on what does that process look like. And the easiest way to know that is to simply ask the attorney, what is the process for clearing this title? What are the steps that we need to go through? And what are going to be the action steps that I need to take as an owner of a property that has a cloud on the title to clear the title? Okay. Those are some really quick questions that you could ask them, and it will definitely get you the answers and also set yourself up for success by understanding what that process looks like in reality. Okay. Okay. Oh, well, I noticed all new homes in Las Vegas are gated HOA. Do you know if there's any new home constructions without HOA gated? So, oh, well, it's a great question. Not every community. There's most of the new home communities, yes, are in HOA, at least while they're in the construction phase, because the builder wants to maintain continuity of the community itself and make sure that there's rules in place so that the people buying in the early phases of it don't just start destroying the community right out of the gate. So that is important to note. Now, can that HOA be abolished after time? Well, if the majority of the homeowners decide that's something they want to do, yes, they could abolish the HOA if you have a majority vote to do so. So that being said, what about those without gates? There's actually a lot of new home communities in Las Vegas that don't have gates. So what it really comes down to, OL, is what kind of price point are you looking at? What are you looking for in your new home construction? And based upon the area that you're looking, the price that you're looking, your expectations of the house for that new construction will ultimately depend on what the expectations by large are of Las Vegans for that price point of home in that area and what amenities are expected for that price. And that's what the builder would be building to. So if you want to have a conversation more about that, OL, hit me up offline. Obviously, I'm here in Las Vegas and we can talk about it. Okay. Brown Gal, thank you. It's from a builder. Thanks. Okay, Brown Gal, I'm a little afraid of paying down my rate and locking it in. How about if the builder doesn't finish building on time? I don't want to have to pay extra for an extension if the builder cannot finish. So that's a very good point, Brown Gal. Now, I would any suggestions in this case? I got a lot of suggestions, but it really comes back to number one, getting out with the trusted real estate advisor. Because when you contract on a new construction property, if you have not already, there will be clauses within that. Let me see if I even have, I know that I had, hang on, I'll show you. I'll show this to you. I'm pulling out a file, and this file right here, I'm not going to show you like everything going on with this file, but I'm going to show you how thick this file is, right? To preserve the family's privacy. This is a new home construction contract from a typical builder. This is from a national level builder. This contract is about 253 pages. Underneath this 253 pages are different clauses and provisions of what happens and what puts you on the hook, what contingencies you have, what rights of counsel you have, what's non-refundable, what is refundable, at what points in time you need to make deposits, whether it's on your new construction, for your design studio visit, options that you choose, what percentages have to be put down, whether you can get that money back if you cancel, what happens in the case of a builder not closing early, and what leaves you on the hook. Now, you're also going to have what's called a loan estimate and loan disclosures when it comes to your loan. That's going to be completely separate with your loan officer. So that's why I'm sharing with you. You're going to want to have that conversation with a trusted real estate advisor that you're working with. When you're buying new, it's always best to have a trusted real estate advisor that knows the new construction process and how to assist you with that so that they can help you make heads and tails of what's going on with that contract and explain to you what's going on there. But that's really good. I literally wanted to pull that out because this is a new home contract we just started up for another family, and I never leave the new home construction office without a hard copy of whatever we've negotiated so that I have it in writing. So it's always a good practice. The Fashionista, thank you. God bless you. All your good advice. Thank you, Fashionista. Really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much. JJ says, thank you so much for all your answers. I'm wondering who signs the contract first, the buyer or the seller. So JJ, you'd be signing the purchase offer first, okay? So as a home buyer, you're going to sign the offer, and your agent is going to submit it to the listing agent. Then the listing agent and the seller are going to discuss it, and they have three options essentially. They could accept your offer as it stands, they could reject your offer as it stands, or they could counter offer, opening up now real estate negotiations moving forward until there are amenable terms to you and both the seller. So, but the process kicks off with you making the offer as a home buyer. Brown Gal says, "Oh wow, thank you so much." Yeah, there's a lot, and I am actually one of those obviously trusted real estate advisors that will sit here and geek out and read every single thing in there just because I'm curious. So yes, that's what I actually do that. And I'm always looking for things, and for the purpose of making videos and having these conversations and how best to answer them, what could surprise people. And there's a lot of stuff that could surprise you, and there's some things that can be negotiated, and there's some things that can't be negotiated depending on the builder that you're working with, and depending on what their corporate policy is for the houses that they build. So that brings into a whole different dynamic, and goes back to the importance of having your own trusted real estate advisor help you out with that. Kobe Higginson, is there a way where us, the buyer, can gauge the market, buyer, seller, or neutral? When I ask, I'm getting mixed results. I'm seeing some houses flying 7 days, and then the same built houses sit. So Kobe, that's a really, really good comment. So just to let you know, when you're talking about like what the market condition is, buyer, seller, or neutral, many places across the country are experiencing what's called a stabilized or neutral market, if you will. So what that's indicative of is longer days on market, more homes that are starting to sit on the market longer on average, and some negotiation has to take place in a neutral or stabilized market, if you will. When you're in a seller's market, typically you have less than 2 months of home inventory available. Now, when we're talking about 2 months, and we're talking about absorption rate principles, when we talk about that in specific, and anybody can calculate an absorption rate. Now, as opposed to going into it on a live stream and explaining the process to you, you might just want to look at the 2019 video. That's 32 minutes long, very comprehensively researched and put together. I made examples of how to bust out the math of everything that you'd want to know about absorption rate, and how to tell what kind of market and what to do to know whether you're in a buyer market, seller market, or stabilized market. But just as a heads up, in many cases across the country, we are in a stabilized market. I say in many cases because in some marketplaces where the prices are getting too high, like upwards of $1 million is average, you're starting to see a decline because people aren't able to afford those homes. So you're also seeing a uptick in other parts of the country when you start looking at like maybe the Midwest or certain areas that are far less expensive than the coast or some of the Midwest states or southern states, right? So it depends on the price of real estate, and it depends on the jobs that are being afforded in the specific economy and area. So that's why it's really wise to have your trusted real estate advisor that you're working with that can assist you in answering those questions for you. If you're a buyer, then they'll be able to point you in the right direction and give you the scoop of what's going on hyper local in that marketplace. And every market could be different. Like again, this Las Vegas, 52 zip codes, okay? In the 52 zip codes, we have homes on the market right now, any from manufactured homes that have been affixed to the ground and are now real estate property, down from like $60,000 on up to like the max sales price, I think right now is hovering around $35 million for an estate. So each one of those price segments, if you start stratifying them out, have their own market conditions and what's going on in that marketplace. As opposed to getting into a huge lesson of why this is. Again, I shared a lot of this in the 2019 video. I mean, we can have that conversation if you really want to have that conversation, but it is something that I think that would be better earlier on in a live stream to get into. But that being said, if you stratify the market, you're going to find a different market condition in between like 100 and 200,000, 200 and 400, 400 to 800, and it only makes sense because it's different socioeconomic factors that go into a person's situation. How much money does somebody earn? What's the average median income in that city? And how many homes are available at the average median income? Normally, that's where your hottest market is. It's kind of I call it the bread and butter market. That's where we as trusted real estate advisors are smart to make sure that we're working with families in those price ranges because that's the average market. And that's also smart to keep an open mind for other opportunities that may exist in more niche markets and what's going on as far as the price point that an agent might aspire to work. Like some people say, Andrew, do you specialize in luxury homes? Not at all. Will I help somebody with luxury homes? Absolutely. But do I specialize in focusing on that clientele only? No. The most people in the city can afford a home around $275 to $350,000. So that's the price point I typically work. And I work with, well, my average sales price as a trust real estate advisor is a little bit higher. To be honest, it's more like in the 400s, mid 400s. At the same time, that's the people that reach out to me the most. These are the people that I work with the most. At the same time, if somebody comes in to me and they're looking for a $250,000 house, am I going to say, no, I can't work with you? No, I'm not going to say that, not based on a price point. So, it's important to understand what each one of those markets do. And I bring this up because this is the reality of every market. You have market conditions and trends for an area. Then you have it for a zip code, then you have it for a neighborhood, then you have it for a price point. So having a trusted real estate advisor that's pegging out that kind of information and knows that kind of detail is going to be able to help answer your questions most accurately as possible. But back to the easiest way of doing it, factor the absorption rate. Okay. Brown Gal, oh well, thank you so much. So I'm able to negotiate. Yes, you want to have your own trusted real estate advisor familiar with new construction so that you can negotiate. Yes, because sometimes people think they are going to walk into a new construction and they're going to negotiate without a trusted real estate advisor, which may or may not happen, right? It's pretty easy for somebody that negotiates for a living and as a trusted real estate advisor that can really read the situation very quickly. And that new home agent, while they do want to help you and they do want to put a contract together with you and all, they ultimately work for the builder. So you need your own representation for someone upholding your best interest. It's just that simple. And the fact that your buyer agent's not going to cost you any money because the seller, in that case, the builder, is paying the commission to the buyer broker. Seems like a no-brainer to me. Why wouldn't somebody take the experience of an agent, especially if they don't even have to pay for it? I mean, it's just absurd. Anyways, Lisa Mack, question. If I see a house for sale by an agent, let's say 21st Century, can I hire a different agent to buy? Absolutely, and you should. So Lisa Mack, the reason I say that is if a house is listed with a listing agent, right? Depending on the state, what becomes known as dual agency, essentially a listing agent have a representation of both the seller and the buyer at the same time, is how can that agent really uphold the seller's best interest and the buyer's best interest on the same property? It is an inherent conflict of interest, and it is a disclosure that's required here in Las Vegas and in a lot of areas of the country to disclose whenever you are in a dual agency situation. That being said, there are times that some people feel comfortable with the agent and they'll do that. I have consummated dual agency here in Las Vegas, Nevada, with the consent of both the buyer and seller, written consent as it is required to do that. And it's and from my vantage point of just being honest and ethical, it's just very easy to sit everybody down around the dinner table or go out to dinner and have a conversation and just break it down honestly right there together and essentially be a mediator, moderator, if you will. They want this, will you do that? They say, we won't do that, but we'll do this. And I'm just taking notes and putting it all in the contract and then asking both parties if everyone agrees. Now, that being said, why not just boycott all of the confusion there and the potential issue of a conflict of interest by getting your own buyer agent to represent your best interest? So yes, you can work with a trusted real estate agent, a trusted real estate advisor from any company, and they can represent you on any sale of property anywhere in their coverage area. Okay, so Lezamak, I guess my question was that hypothetically, if someone is selling a house through an agent in California, can I hire you to buy a house? Can you hire me to buy the house in California? That's a really good question. You couldn't hire me because I'm not licensed in California. Real estate is obviously a geographical thing. There's so many different places that you get a license in. I'd have to have a license in California, then I'd have to have access to the local multiple listing service. Those things come with a price of thousands of dollars annually to maintain, literally thousands. Like whether I helped one family close on one home or not this year, I am on the hook for a minimum of $5,000 just by virtue of being a real estate agent, just in different fees and licenses, insurances, and all that fun stuff that have to be carried. That being said, I'm not licensed in California. So I wouldn't be able to give you good representation anyways, without being able to be there to guide you through the process. It is something that I can assist people with, and that's why we do, well, that's why I do make these videos to help educate and guide you through what to expect. But ultimately, I can help you find a trusted real estate advisor if that makes it easier for you that's familiar with new construction. And if that's the case, just hit me up directly on email, and we can make that happen for you. I do want to say thank you for the thought of, could you hire me to buy the house in California with you? I do want to say thank you for the thought, and that's very sweet and kind of you. So thank you for that. Hopefully my answer explains why that's not a possibility at this time. Brown Gal 00, should I make sure I get pre-approved before signing the buyer contract from a builder and putting down earnest money deposit? Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Get pre-approved first. Yes. In fact, anybody watching right now, according to Brown Gal's comment, always make sure you have a pre-approval before you look at a single home. If you don't have the pre-approval, then you might be looking at the wrong price for your home. You might not get approved for as much home as you thought you could, and then that presents a massive issue. And if you're just spinning wheels, we should never go shopping without knowing what we got in the bank. And we should always secure our game plan with prudent practices prior to going out and looking for a home. Okay, one of those prudent practices is always making sure we have a pre-approval prior to getting started. Kobe Higginson says, awesome info. Thank you, sir. I will check out the video. Okay, y'all, we've been going for just coming up on 90 minutes, so I'm going to truncate this. I do have a couple of appointments here shortly, and the first family I'm meeting with is in less than a half an hour. So I gotta let you guys go. Really appreciate you joining in today and the wonderful conversations today. Absolutely amazing. And in between now and next time, I'm wishing you and yours a lifetime full of love, wealth, abundance, and happiness. And please be the reason that someone smiles today. Thank you so much, and enjoy a beautiful day. Bye, Megoria.